Hello, friends, and welcome back to the I Do Wedding Marketing podcast. It is episode 13. 13, some may say it's unlucky, but today I think we're going to prove that it's not because I have Ilaria Petrucci here on the show today. She is a renowned destination photographer, and boy, is her work gorgeous. I'm going to have links to her website and Instagram in the show notes so you can see her work and see her beautiful face as well. She's absolutely stunning on the inside and out. So this is a longer episode. Normally my episodes are pretty short, but this one is, the interview itself is about 45 minutes, but I'm going to keep it all in just because I love to talk shop. And if you're listening to a podcast like this, then I'm sure that you love to talk shop too. So if this is your first time here, let me introduce myself. My name is Nina Adio, and I'd like to thank you for allowing this podcast into your earbuds, your Bluetooth, your car radio, wherever you are listening from. On the I Do Wedding Marketing podcast, I discuss tips and tricks for wedding pros to DIY their social media or gain the confidence to outsource it. So last week, I filled you in on some things that I had been doing. I've been experimenting a lot with LinkedIn. So what I'm seeing now is about when I'm starting a new company page from scratch in the first week, I was able to get about 44 new people, like totally new, to follow the page. Company pages are still a struggle with LinkedIn. That's my take on it because so much is person to person and not just person to business when it comes to venues and things like that. So I'm going to keep experimenting with it and keep you posted on what I'm doing and what's working and what isn't. I've been posting a lot on my personal LinkedIn page, which you can find at Nina Adio. And on there, I found that being conversational has worked a lot. So posting polls and asking for people's takes, sharing a destination venue I really like, saying how I'd love to, if I could do it all again, I'd get married here. Would you do a destination wedding? And things like that people are talking to. And the goal there is that the more I can connect with people on my personal page, the more I'll then be able to link those people to the company pages I represent. So the LinkedIn experiment, I will be keeping you posted on because, like I said with LinkedIn, when I say business, I mean wedding business on LinkedIn. And weddings are so great and an easy hit for Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. I'm going to figure out this LinkedIn thing, and you guys are all going to hear it all first here on this podcast. So let me, though, stop talking. I'll come back at the end to say goodbye, but let's take it away with Miss Ilaria. All right, Ilaria, it is so great to finally have you on the podcast. My first ever guest. This is like
Thank you. Oh, I didn't know that. Thank you for having me. It's so great. So great to be here with you.
So you guys can imagine how I just fangirled when I met Ilaria. We were in a coaching program together, and I saw that she not only did wedding photography, but did like editorial, gorgeous wedding photography across Europe. I know your 3 locations specifically you put as London, Cheshire, and Tuscany. So how does that work, being, traveling through them?
So, well, I've been a wedding photographer for 9 years, and I've done destination weddings for 5 years. It was fun. It's definitely fun. I have to say, as a photographer, we are creatives, and at least I can only talk for myself, but I have a lot. My friends are mostly wedding photographers or coaches, so I know the industry very well, and I know the people in it, and so many you get so excited about the idea of destination weddings, and we travel, and it's great fun, and I've learned so much about the industry, so much about myself, and my work really developed through these experiences for sure. is not a holiday.
Not for you.
For sure. Not for you, yes. But absolutely, it's great. I love to travel anyway, and I love to see new places, and whenever I can, I do extend by a day or two if it's possible. But if not, I actually quite enjoy even just the buzz of the airport and the rush of land, go, shoot. I've done it before where I left the wedding and I went straight to the airport, slept at the airport, waiting for my flight to take off, landed and drove to another wedding. I don't recommend it. And if you do that, definitely have a backup team back home, wherever you're going. But yes, it's fun, and it's a great experience if you love that kind of buzz and lifestyle.
So what was the evolution like going from, because you didn't start doing destination, correct? So
I did.
When you started, how did you get involved in doing weddings specifically for your photography, and then identifying what your ideal wedding and couple was?
Great question. This is like going back to the beginning of my journey. Oh my God. So actually, when I've always been multi-passionate about different things growing up and in my life, and I've always been the friend with the camera that wanted to take pictures of everyone. And one Christmas, I think I got a gift from my dad it wasn't a professional camera, it was just a kit camera. And so I started, and I think it was 2013 or 2012. And so I started taking pictures of family members and just explore. And for me, it was like the best camera I ever had. Not one I could have shot weddings with, but to me, it was like the most professional thing on the planet. So it allowed me to just explore and just try different things. And I actually started out wanting to do baby photography.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like newborns. That's it. I couldn't think of the word. Newborns. And then I remember one of my first shoots was a couple of twins, boys, and they both weed on me. On the shoe. And I don't have kids. I love kids, but I don't have any of my own. And I was like, this is not what I thought it was gonna be. It doesn't fit alignment. And then how it happened, I think I started joining groups of Facebook groups with photographers just to network and meet other photographers. And this one photographer was asking for a third shooter on a wedding, and I was like, I'll come. There was no pressure because he wasn't going to use my images, but at that point I already had a professional camera. I've invested in it, so I went along as a third shooter, and I fell in love with weddings immediately. And I thought, okay, this is where I want to be. This feels aligned, this is exciting, it's happy, and I get to create. And then I started from there. My first wedding, I got I remember I charged £500 for it. It was somebody on Facebook, and I wasn't even ready for it, because at that point I think I only second shot twice or three times, if I remember right. And I was like, oh no, I'm not ready to shoot on my own. She was like, oh, that's fine, we already got married, we just want some photos. And it happened. She knew exactly where I was in my journey. She knew that I wasn't a professional photographer. She knew that my kit was what it was, and she was happy with it. So it was a honest and good deal for both sides. I've never sweated so much in my life as, oh my God, that day. I remember the moment, because as a photographer, light is very important, and how light changes. And I was shooting manual. I've always shot manual and always will. So it was like light change. I remember when they were coming out of the church, that moment I was like literally like a river of sweat. I was so nervous. But that's how you learn,
Yeah.
You learn in the field, and you learn by doing. And that's what I've done.
I hope you don't mind me sharing this, but in our coaching program, the big thing we saw for Ilaria was that you had your biggest month ever in your wedding photography business
This year.
Yeah. And when you guys look at her feed, I'm going to link her Instagram. It's Ilaria_Petrucci
And
photo.
actually, I've only just raised my prices to 2,800. So the bigger month was on different pricing. Obviously, wow. I have different packages, so I can't say they all booked for one package, but on average, it was between 1,950 and 2.5, just to give an idea.
Yeah.
But it's a process, I think your price grows with you. I don't believe in charging your worth. I think it's just the biggest misconception, because you can't charge your worth. Like, how do you put a price on you? £1 million for a wedding. It's like, no, like, you can't charge your worth. What you charge is what the client values your work. So let me rephrase that. Actually, what you charge is how your client think that what they're getting is worth.
Well, I have to say, you have something on your website that I think is really smart, because I think it sets the tone for whether it's the pricing, for what you offer, for the value. And I work with clients who highly value their wedding photos and feel that their wedding photography is one of the absolutely most important things for their day. So I feel like, and I don't use this as a negative term, but I feel like right away, you're able to identify your ideal client. So a budget bride is going to read that and probably know that,
that's okay.
You're not their person, and I don't mean that negative. And budget bride could be somebody's target couple. And so you would have a phrase that identifies with them. I feel the phrase you have identifies with somebody who wants to invest more to have what really looks like editorial images. When you look at Ilaria's feed, to me, it's shocking that it's just been 9 years, because it just looks straight out of a high fashion magazine.
Yeah, you're biased.
So how important was identifying your ideal client to your success, and how long did that take to really streamline and identify?
Yeah, it's a journey. It's a journey that goes alongside. You identified my work as editorial, which is, I would say is correct. But it's a process to find your style of editing, your style of shooting, your style of equipment as well. Like, I'm a prime shooter, for example. I only use primes, which for someone who isn't familiar with the terminology is like fixed lenses. So I don't use zoom lenses. I don't like them. I feel lazy in it. I like to move as part of my creative process when I'm shooting. I like to move. I like to be active. I don't like to stand in one place and keep shooting the same scene. Everyone works differently, and there is no right or wrong. And this is the beauty of like being an artist and being creative. There is no right or wrong. I think for me, this is again one of the other big lessons that I've learned in my journey from the beginning up until now, is that do you. It's so easy to look at other photographers and try and do what they're doing because they're obviously successful, and so what they're doing must be working, and so I'm going to do the same. The only thing that's going to work for you is to do you. Follow your creative voice. Do something that it's, even if it doesn't feel right, even not that it doesn't feel right, even if you think that people might not like it, just put it out there anyway. Because when you go through your work, if there is something that makes you feel something, that's your sign that you have to put it out there, because your ideal client will have the same reaction when they come through your images. And you mentioned this, the phrase on my website. For me, I want to be an immediate yes or an immediate no. I don't want anything in between. I don't want like maybes. I want my brides and my grooms, but I mainly get booked by my brides, to absolutely fall in love with me, my work straight away, my philosophy as well straight away, of like candid photography, not posed, free and wild and rather than traditional and posed and rigid. So yeah. It's an immediate yes or no.
Yeah. So how else, in addition to some of the verbiage on your website, do you feel you have set up your branding and your marketing and your image to set up for that immediate yes?
Just by being myself,
Mhm.
and one of the things for me was when I fell in love with blurred images. And at the
Mhm.
time, there was only a couple of people that was doing it. And I was like, oh my God, am I going to post a blurred images? I absolutely love blurred images. And they talk to me, they make me feel something. And my brides, when they come across my work, they feel the same. And that's how I know that they are the right client for me. When somebody emails me and say, I love your work because it's so natural, it's so free, so I love the blurred and I love everything and the colors, and that's a good match. But it's mainly the philosophy and like being aligned with the philosophy and the values. For me, weddings are about people and connection. It's not about, although I photograph the details, it's not about the details, it's not about the material stuff. For me, it's about the people that are there, the people you chose to have on your wedding day, and the connection between you and yourself, you and your guest, and you or your partner. So that's what kind of like I aim for in my marketing, and I try to evoke that and communicate that through my images, through the language on my website, through when I show up on Instagram and talk about myself as well. And so it's, yeah, so but just by doing myself and embracing and fully owning that.
Yeah. And so I feel like that really lends to, you've gotten to a point where you're able to really just choose your niche and choose your focus. You're multi-passionate. But what, in the beginning stages, what type of advertising or marketing or things like that helped you to get those bookings and get that experience and get that success that you now have?
So I've always booked, I would say, probably 70% of my work through Instagram. Instagram,
Really? Okay.
yeah, it's always been my platform. Just by sharing my work, sharing some personal life, just to connect with people on a values level.
Mhm.
Um, I used to be very active on stories, much more than I am today, if I'm honest. I also did try, obviously, some advertising, which didn't really work for me, if I have to be honest, because
Mhm.
but I think you have to kind of try and test different things. I
Yeah.
don't want to say, to anyone that's listening, don't do that because it doesn't work. For some people, it's absolutely working. What I've realized that my client isn't there.
Yes.
That's
Okay.
why it didn't work for me. But if your client is someone that goes to wedding fairs, then
Mhm.
absolutely go to a wedding fair, because you want to be where your ideal client is. If your client is on forums, I don't know, wedding forums or
Mhm.
wedding
Facebook
blogs,
groups and
absolutely do that. At the beginning, I used to do quite a few style shoots, which have been really great for building relationships within the industry. I think in terms of bookings, like a conversion, I think I've only booked one or maybe two weddings through a style shoot in my career. But again, this is just me. It doesn't mean that it doesn't work. But in terms of building connection with venues, with other vendors, to get your name known in the industry, to get publications and things like that, that's great, and it's great fun, and it also helps you to find your style. Like for me, one of the first things that I immediately realized is that even for style shoot, I am not shooting models.
okay.
Because I already knew that I was all about connection. And for me, even in my personal life, I'm a very deep person. I'm a very I have to find meaning in everything. So for me, if it's not meaningful and if it's not real, I don't want it. And it's kind of like, this is just who I am. And again,
Yeah.
embrace who you are. And I was like, just shooting models, I don't feel it, because I know that the connection isn't real and they're giving me those model looks, and I don't want that.
So
I want, yeah, like I want the loud laughs and the giggles and the real stuff. So I think I shot models a couple of times, and then I switched to just finding my own real couples to shoot. So I either asked a couple of times to my previous couples, or I just found people on Instagram. But for me, it was important, and the connection was real. Even if the styling of the day wasn't a real wedding, I needed to make it as real as possible, because that was important to me. And that's how, by doing that, I also improved my photography and my creative style, because I was shooting what I wanted.
How do you bring out that connection in a couple? Let's say maybe they're camera shy, or do you have a process of getting to know them and their relationship before the wedding? What's that process like?
Yeah, I always say the relationship with the bride starts the minute they email you with an inquiry. So again, I try to be myself through the language in an email, before I even speak to them. So I would just speak to them in an email like I would speak to them in person, right? Without, I'm not a formal person. I'm just, who I am. So I would just start there. And then obviously 100% of my couples are, self-conscious in front of the camera, or shy, or they've never been photographed professionally before, which I love, because it keeps that kind of genuinity, is that a word? Like, keeps it genuine and real. So one of the things that I do, if somebody is particularly self-conscious, is I take my time to work the space. So I would start shooting from far away.
Okay.
Rather than going right in their face close. And I'm quite an intuitive person as well. So I tend to feel with my couple how they, how close I can go and how soon I can get close. And also movement. For me, movement is so important. I get my couples to walk, to move, to move in whichever way. Because that takes them away from the, oh my God, she's photographing us kind of sense. And movement helps you relax and helps you focus on each other. I give them directions. I ask them to think, give them things to think about, things to talk about, things to remember. And especially if they have an engagement session, I have more time on the engagement session to actually walk around with them and talk and ask them questions, learn about them. And also, I love to watch people, because everyone demonstrates affections in different ways. And that is such a beautiful part of the process for me, because I can give the same direction to different couples and they would just give me something different. And I always say to them, don't feel like you have to follow what I'm saying, just be yourself. And then I would just watch what they do. And then I would say, oh yeah, I love that, do more of your way of doing things. So for me, being present and attuned with them in that way is what helps me connect, and therefore get their trust and then bring their connection out.
That's great. And it makes me think now, how important to you is that opportunity to photograph them for an engagement shoot? And do you recommend people try to bundle that into packages? Or I know some people will try to offer it as a booking incentive because it kind of benefits both. So I'm wondering how you feel about that.
I mean, nowadays I'm really confident. Like I always say, I don't want my couples to feel pressured that they are only gonna have relaxed and beautiful shots if they have a photo shoot, like an engagement session. So I always say to them, it's a great extra. We get to know each other. We get to spend some time. Obviously, you get all the pictures from the shoot, the edited shots, and it's fun. So you'll have great memories from it. But even if you don't, you're still going to have amazing shots on the wedding day. And it's important for me that they know that, and they don't feel the pressure to do the engagement session just because. And probably from a marketing point of view is not the best advice, but it's important to me that this is how it is, and it's my choice to do that. I know a lot of people offer it as an incentive. Which is definitely beneficial for both sides. The couple get to experience what it's like to be photographed before the wedding day. so that on the wedding, they don't feel the same anxiety and they already know what to expect, which definitely helps in terms of nerves. So from that point of view, 100%. But if the couple doesn't want it, they're still going to get amazing images. So it's not,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think a great point, because you mentioned how it may not be the best, quote, marketing advice, but at the same time, a big part of marketing is building trust. And either option is going to do that. You're either going to build trust by that being totally honest with your couple and saying, if you want to do this, we can do this. And it's a great experience, but your photos are going to be great regardless. Or you build trust when you go in and do the shoot. So I think both really are going to create that end result with the couple.
Yeah, and I think by the time a couple books you, they already trust you, because I don't speak to my couples, to all of my couples before they book me. Some just book me off an email, and that's great. But if I talk to them, I always tell them the photography is the last thing I want you to worry about on your wedding day. So to me, the trust is important, because they need to trust me, because otherwise,
Yeah. So it sounds like you've gotten to a point in your business, from what you have on Instagram, on your website, et cetera, that you don't really have to sell yourself that much by the time the couple comes. It seems like your Instagram and your website does that for you. And by the time they come, they're already pretty much sold. Do you feel that?
I feel that, yes. I don't chase inquiries anymore. And again, this could be the worst marketing advice, but this is what feels aligned with me, and my business works. Some people will say the sell is in the follow-up. But for me, the sell is in the trust and in the connection, and it works for me, and that's great. I think I build trust with my clients because they see the consistency of my work. Obviously, they have the website to refer to. I show my face on stories regularly. So I build that connection that way. So the selling is almost like a natural way to sell, which is very in line with who I want to be and my integrity and stuff like that.
Absolutely. So since you said 70% of your bookings are through Instagram, I was wondering if we could talk about that process for a bit. Maybe if we could put it in the mindset of kind of day one, or a photographer who's, finally gonna really pivot to using Instagram as their lead source. What would you advise they do, and how would they set that up?
Well, create an account, give it a name, and show up, and again, show up as yourself, show your work. And I remember feeling a lot of pressure at the beginning of I need to get my style right. But I think it took me about probably the first 3 years of my business to actually really settle in an editing style and find my consistency. So if anyone is right at the beginning of the journey and they're struggling with that, it's completely normal. It's a process. As you grow, your editing will change. And even photographers that have been in business for 9, 10, 15 years, they might hit a point where they're actually, I don't want to edit like this anymore. I'm going dark, or I'm going lighter, or I'm going, more grainy. I don't know. So we always change, we always evolve. So it's a process. So just allow the process to happen. And I would say for Instagram, just be really clear on who you want to work with, what kind of people, what kind of client. And I'm sure online you can find everything about who is your ideal client, define your ideal client, which is all part of your, what are your values, what is important to you about a wedding, because the values is where I think the base of branding, and values are at the base of any successful relationship. If you share the same values, you're going to be happy. And if you have different values, you are going to clash, obviously. So communicate your values through your work, through your
messaging, your
messaging,
your
caption, the language, your stories, and the clients will come.
So how important is consistency of posting? You know, did you have, when you were building your Instagram, a set amount you would post? Would it just be after a wedding? What would you do for that?
Well, I have to be honest, if for my photography business, especially we're talking about, well, at least, yeah, 9 years ago, you know, and maybe even like up to 7 years ago, I was just kind of posting, yes, after a wedding, I was trying to post every day. I've never really followed like a marketing strategy as such. But consistency, yeah, consistency is more important than skills. If nobody knows that you're there, and consistency builds trust as well. That's the most important thing. So definitely, yes, I used to post a minimum of once a day, but I had gaps when, you know, even now I don't post for a week, maybe more sometimes.
And I think, you know, consistency just means whatever is consistent for you. So for somebody else, consistent may be 3 times a week.
Absolutely.
You know? So you can't don't let that trip you up. But I think the overall message is showing up, you know, and letting people know what you do, that you're around, that you're active.
Yeah, even twice a week, but be consistent. People know that on Tuesday at 7 p.m. you post something. So that is how you build the trust, even once a week, you know, but at least it's consistent. You know, find something that feels aligned with where you are according to the time that you have to dedicate to it. And if you don't have work to show off, then offer your friends, find people to shoot for free at the beginning. I don't think there's nothing wrong with that until you feel aligned with, you know, charging, and then you go from, you know, I remember right at the beginning and before weddings, my first family shoot, I was charging £35, you know, and now a 2-hour shoot, I charge $650. So you grow, you know, but I couldn't have charged $650 back then because I wasn't the photographer that I am today. So my, you know, your skill grows with your confidence and with your pricing. And
right. It's not about, it's about getting the experience and building up to that. It's not about saying you need low prices or anything like that. It's just about getting the experience to be able to charge what you want to charge so you can have a thriving business.
As long as you're aligned with your pricing, you're in integrity, and then, you know, you're doing the right thing.
Great. Yeah, that's a great point. It's about the integrity too, because if you haven't shot before and you're charging, you know, $1,000 a shoot,
and don't be afraid to raise your prices. That's not why people don't book you, because you're always going to be out of budget for somebody, regardless of what you're charging. You know, it doesn't matter. And if another thing that I've learned is never a matter of money, always a matter of value. People, you know, we're human beings, and, you know me, I'm very much into psychology as well. And as human beings, we will always find time and money for what's important to us. So if somebody says you are out of budget, you know, sometimes you could be out of budget, you know, I'm not saying that's not the case, but most of the times it's just the value, maybe the value is not communicated properly. So think about how can you show the value of the whole experience, not just the photos as in like the final product. What's the client experience, you know, when they enter your world and we're in it and then we're coming out of it.
You said earlier that you want your couples not to have to worry at all about their photography, you know, so any wedding professional, no matter what it is you do, if you're a musician or DJ, you could say, I want my couples to know that their guests are going to be entertained. You know, my couples value having a fun time for their guests. They want their, you know, so whatever it is that you do, it's using that similar messaging of creating that value behind it.
That's right.
Which is really great. And then the last thing I want to ask about Instagram is, did you do, you know, any proactive engagement? Did you do any ad work? Or do you feel people just kind of came to you? What was that process like?
I've done, you know, I've never paid anyone to do my ads. It's not a route that I've explored myself, but who knows? I probably would have been more successful if I did. I would never know. I've tried a few times, the boost the post thing, without really knowing what I was doing, and I got lots of likes, and that was about it. So I think if I had to go back, or if there was something that I was considering now, I would definitely probably get somebody that knows what they're doing, maybe hire a professional to do the marketing for me, because I think just doing it yourself is just
because I feel personally, for me, I can get more leads through organic engagement than through an ad. I'll get more likes through the ad, but I'll get more leads through the organic engagement. So I was wondering if you did any of that, interacting with profiles or ideal couples, or even using Instagram to help you identify what your ideal couple was.
Definitely use Instagram to identify what my ideal couple was. I think I remember and this is something that I didn't just do once. You do it over and over, because the ideal client changes as you grow, obviously, and as your price bracket changes as well. And I knew I didn't want to stay in the same price bracket for too long, unless I was at the final price bracket where I wanted to be, sort of thing. So it just helps to understand like the behavior of my ideal bride, who is she, what does she do, what's her interest. So it definitely helped. But in terms of interaction on Instagram, again, for me, it was always important that it was genuine. So I have interacted with other people, but it's always been from a place of, I really like what this person does, especially in terms of other vendors, connecting with other vendors. I always ever, contacted or associated with people who created things that I thought they were absolutely amazing and beautiful, and I really appreciated their art. It was never for me out of I need to market, or I need to connect to book a client, sort of thing. So
in the beginning, did you experiment with sites like The Knot or anything like that?
Yes, I've been published a few times, not on The Knot, but I've been on Magnolia Rouge, I've been on Whimsical Wonderland weddings quite a few times. I've been on magazines as well. I think weddings. Oh my god, I can't remember all the names now.
I know. Try to look on your website now to see if you have a listing.
Yes, please look there. Festival brides. Love My Dress. So yeah, I've had my. And there again, submit your work. Real weddings are always more of a hit than style shoots, but by no means, if you have like a style shoots that is very different and unique, do find your place to submit it. But I'm not an expert on submission, so I can't really,
So I'll just ask then, do you feel that's something after Instagram, let's say, is that worth the time investment of submitting and, getting published in those places?
I think yes, because he helps with credibility. For as much as I don't really like to say that, unfortunately, I think that's the case.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you get published a lot, you're a good photographer, which is not true. Absolutely.
Well, I think it's the same as, if you have 10K followers, it's kind of,
exactly.
It's, in a sense, what we call in marketing a vanity metric. But yes. I think it does help with that credibility, that trust.
Yes, definitely. It helps with website traffic for sure.
Yes. Yeah, backlinking.
But I just don't want anyone to hear this and think, oh, I have to be, if I don't get published, I'm not a good photographer, I won't make it in the wedding photography business. Absolutely not. If you want to be published, you do the work and you submit enough enough times, you will definitely get published eventually. But it doesn't mean anything. You know what I mean? It doesn't make you a good photographer. Right. It just makes you a photographer that's been published.
Yeah. And if those more national and, worldwide based publications or blogs and websites are too daunting, then focus local and try to do that, and it's a lot less
Yeah.
daunting and a lot less pressure. Even if you're just being shared on their Instagram, as you build up to getting shared on the websites, it can still kind of boost that confidence and everything.
Yes.
But what I think is really great about your photography business is that, you are multi-passionate, and it has allowed you to broaden what you can do, where, you're not just doing photography, you're doing coaching as well. So how amazing is it that your photography business now allows you to do that? I mean, how does that feel? That
Yeah,
you've
I've
gotten to that
started
place?
saying, I've started saying that my photography is now my 9 to 5, what used to be my 9 to 5, which is amazing because it's something, something I absolutely love doing. But yes, so I've always been multi-passionate, and the one passion that I've had since I was 17, 19 years old has been psychology. So human development, human behavior, child development. So I've always studied, this kind of within this kind of industry. I'm qualified in a few coaching methods like NLP and CBT, and I'm now actually doing a specialization say the word right, in trauma and addiction. So and I want to, I'm building my business into this kind of field, which has been my absolute passion, and I find it fascinating to understand child development, inner child trauma, how we are the way that we are, and how do we get here in this way, and if something is not working, why do we keep doing it? And I love to help people with that. So that's what I'm working on at the moment. My wedding season is finished, so I'm focusing for the next 6 months on building my trauma-informed coaching business.
Yeah, well, if you can create one successful business, I have no doubt that you can do two.
Absolutely.
Yeah, especially
no
if you're passionate about both. And I think as a multi-passionate person, you can get burnout if you're only doing one of your passions, which is why I think doing both in conjunction is really great.
I love that you said that, because so many people feel like, oh my God, I'm so overwhelmed and so burnt out. But actually, maybe it's not because you're doing too much. Maybe you're not doing enough.
Yes, you're doing too much of one thing and not bringing in the other.
Not enough of what you enjoy. And I think it's very common with multi-passionate people. They just feel like, oh, I have to focus on one thing. But if there is more than one thing that brings you joy and, a way to express yourself, go for it.
Yeah, I'm sure it would actually be a break for you if in between a day of editing, you had a coaching call. Like, it would just be like, it would feel like your break, from work.
It's definitely happened before.
Yeah. But, I think a lot of people listening are probably having the aha moment right now, just based on how you spoke about working with your couples and, being intuitive with your messaging and aligned with your pricing. And now hearing how you're into psychology and, coaching, they're probably like, it's all coming together. It all makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah. And definitely the interest in psychology has helped me in my, attuning with my clients, because as a coach, I studied how to attune with a client, how to be present, and I think that presence helps with trust, makes the client feel safe and comfortable. And when the client feels comfortable, they are their best self, they relax and they don't feel stiff. And then that's how you get like very spontaneous and genuine reactions in your images.
Yeah. Now, would you, do you have a limitation on who you work with for your coaching? Is it broad? If there was someone who's in the wedding industry, but is also looking for a coach, is that something that you would do?
Yeah, no, I don't have any limitation, as long as someone is willing to be coached. As long as you're coachable, then you're open to change, to grow, and to if you feel stuck in your reality, for example, as long as you're willing to see things from a different perspective, and are open-minded, you're in.
Yeah, and I think that will really change your work as well. It will change how you reach clients. It will change how you perform. I mean, just amazing things happen when you allow yourself to be coached. Because Ilaria and I have both witnessed it happen in each other through our being coached together.
Yes.
So we
Yes.
can definitely attest to it.
And it definitely helps you in business as well, in being more confident if you're struggling to, with being visible or to be seen, or you're afraid to do things wrong, or feeling like you don't want to be rejected. If a client says no to your offer, this is all stuff that is rooted in our programming, and programming comes from childhood, so it's all kind of connected, and that's my goal with my coaching, is to help people overcome this limitations, this conditioning from the past, and these blocks, so that can show up in business in a much more powerful and embodied way, like full of themselves. This is another expression that has a really bad reputation. You're so full of yourself. Well, who else do I have to be full of?
Someone's got to be, right?
You know what I mean? Be full of you, and then that you-ness. I love how I come up with words like that. This you-ness would just, radiate out of you, and then shine on other people and everything, so yeah, be full of yourself.
Great. Yeah. Now I know you have a Facebook group, you have an Instagram. I can link everything in the show notes. Where do you recommend people come if they want to learn more about your coaching? Because I have to say, the opportunity to be coached by somebody who knows about what you do, or knows about the wedding industry, I think that's a huge deal.
Yes. So Instagram is the best, my favorite place to show up. So Ilaria Petrucci _coaching is my coaching page. And I also have a Facebook group, which at the moment is exclusive for women, and it's called the Womanhood Project. So if you search on Facebook for the Womanhood Project, just request to be a member and I'll accept you in.
Great. And I will link it down below. This has been so fun and just insightful.
I loved it. Thank you.
Thank you for your transparency and letting me, just ask you anything openly. It was like,
I hope it was helpful.
Yes. And so I'll ask one last thing. Let's see. Big finale question. Well, I have to ask, is there a favorite thing you've ever seen at a wedding? I know that's like a question.
Emotions, I think, just
allowing
I have to say
themselves to feel.
I have to say, and it's so cheesy and I don't really care, but it's the groom crying as the bride.
Yes.
I mean, come on. I've had bride like literally booking tears. You have to cry.
Little do we know, like his best man was pinching him till he cried. Like
I know, and also the father of the bride. It's they get emotional to walk their daughters, and it's just it's just beautiful to witness, and I always feel so honored. To just witness these beautiful raw emotions. That's my two answers.
Yeah, and very aligned with everything you've said today. So guys, don't forget, I'm going to have links to everywhere you can find Ilaria for both photography and coaching in the show notes, or you can just send me a message on I Do Wedding Marketing. Thank you so much for your time today, Ilaria.
Thank you. I can't believe I'm your first guest. You are such an amazing host. Thank you so much for having me, Nina. You are amazing. Thank you.
Couldn't you just listen to her talk all day? And sometimes, I think I'm not speaking for myself when I say I have imposter syndrome. So when you hear ideas reiterated by somebody who you really trust and who is excellent about what they do, it just really helps you get inspired and ready to go. So please be sure to message myself or Ilaria. Like I said, all of her social media and website handles are going to be linked in the show notes. I let her know what you thought of this podcast and if there was anything that resonated with you. because, we would really love to hear it. So, if you would like to talk about your business with me, I think that would be great. Send me a message at I Do Wedding Marketing. We are expanding, and I have slots available right now for full service social media marketing services. Once I'm at capacity, that's it. So, now that we have some availability and my team is growing, you can, I say, take advantage of it. All right. So, send me a message on my website. That's www.idoweddingmarketing.com. If you enjoyed this episode today, please leave an Apple Podcast review, as it means a lot and helps more professionals to find this podcast. New episodes of the I Do Wedding Marketing podcast are going to be dropping every Wednesday during season 2. I'm also live on my Instagram every Wedding Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern, and that's at I Do Wedding Marketing. So thanks for being here, guys, and until next week.